Sarah, how many years you been doing this?
I've been doing it for 22 years.
Awesome.
Mm,
Awesome.
thank you.
Did
In
you
Northern Arizona.
in Northern Arizona, no less? Did you ever work for the county?
I did for over 8 years.
That's right. Somehow, one of your numbers I was trying to dial yesterday, I kept getting Eric Peterson.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yep. Keith, are you going to open it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll wait for a few more folks to
Yeah.
drop in here, and then we'll get rolling.
We were blessed with snow last night up here.
But I understand. That's great.
It is great. We really need the moisture.
Yeah.
Mm.
Got a little bit of rain here in Phoenix, but not much.
I wondered, I saw some photos earlier this week where there was a dusting pretty far south.
Yeah, my wife's up in Prescott Valley at the moment, and they got snow. Okay, well, let's go. Good morning, everybody. We've got 19 folks on the line, and we're with Sara Wagner today. Sara is a grant writing expert who resides in Flagstaff. She's been in the grant writing business for 22 years. So she is well steeped in grant writing and the do's and don'ts and best practices of grant writing. I think this is a very timely topic today because with the American Recovery Act that recently got passed, there is a lot of federal money going to become available very, very soon. And I think the way most of that will be administered is through grants. And so as people are tired of hearing me say, you have to be prepared. And I think the time is now to get prepared in order to take advantage of some of these resources. So without any further delay, I'll turn it over to Sara. Let me share the screen here.
Thank you, Keith, and good morning, everybody. I'm honored to be able to deliver this presentation to you today. Yeah, as Keith said, I've been writing grants since 1999. I used to work for the Navajo Area Indian Health Service, and that's where I gained a tremendous amount of experience, and it was my first real interfacing with rural communities here in Northern Arizona. Keith, if you would like to advance to that next slide.
Sure, there we go. Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Now we're cooking.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And so I'm currently, I'm a member of something called the Grant Professionals Association. And if you've not heard of that, it's a really stellar professional organization that's international. Our mission is to reshape the world through the transformative power of grants. So no matter where you are in your own grant seeking journey or grant managing journey, you're an active participant in this. And one reason this is such a valuable organization for most of us is because of the opportunity it affords to network with colleagues and learn from them. We can't specialize in everything, but together we can accomplish quite a bit. So I'm currently the governance committee chair for that association. And I'm also, we just launched a new Northern Arizona chapter, and I'm the president of that. I'm professional certified since 2015. I've been a small business owner since 2017. I'm coming from the county. I worked there for over 8 years, and I won my first competitive federal grant in 2008 and administered my first federal grant when I was on Navajo. Thanks, Keith. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about me. It's challenging to deliver this to you because I know that we're coming from all different ends of the grant life cycle. And so a lot of people use the word grant as all encompassing, but actually that word is very specific for some of us. And so this slide depicts the grant life cycle. And, oh, I'm sorry, I should have told you, if you have questions, please add them to the chat or write them down. There'll be time at the end of the presentation to clarify anything that comes up, and I will do my best to answer coherently. Okay, so there's the pre-award end, and that's when contemplations, when you get the idea. Organizational development is like how your idea will fit into your organization. The third one, prospect research, means searching for funding opportunities that are a good fit for your idea and your organization. The fourth is how you will approach getting that funding. And the fifth is where I come in, and what this presentation today is about, application development. After the application's developed, then it gets submitted. And then a person would move to the post-award stage. And there's actually more steps than the 4 indicated here, but in a nutshell, you get the award, and then you have to implement the program per the protocol you agreed to with the funder. And you have to submit regular reports and evaluate your project. And then eventually it will be closed out officially. So in a non-COVID world, I would love to be in the same room with you and see all of you and have you, raise your hands so I would know who is here in the audience as far as what your official structure is. I imagine it looked from the participant list as though some of you are coming from the nonprofit sector, while others are affiliated with a government organization, another entity. Perhaps you're a partner of somebody seeking grants. You may be an entrepreneur, from the community end, a passionate advocate, or something else. And so I'm trying to tailor this content to those who maybe have never written a grant application, as well as those of you who have maybe written a handful. You may be pretty experienced or somewhere in between. So just know we've all been there, and it's just the ropes you learn as you go along. So this last one, though, is really important. Again, people use the word grant as though it's commonly understood, but actually you would need to articulate the type of grant you're interested in pursuing. So you would need to figure out, are you going after a federal grant, a state pass-through grant, corporate grant, foundation grant, or another type? And the reason that's important is those types of funders have completely different protocol they typically follow. And then the type of grant might be reimbursement, or you might hope to get all the funds on the front end. That's where your organizational capacity will come in. And then another aspect of grant type is, are you looking for grants to support your general operations, a specific program, overall capacity building, or something else? And those are really important things to kind of figure out before you actually start going further. Okay, so no matter what, you need to embrace the process, and simply maintaining a positive attitude makes all the difference in the world. So you see this cartoon on the left, you could fear grants, right? Like the deadline's coming up and this is a scary thing. Or you could just, like the cartoon on the right that shows, you could just see it as, okay, yes, there's some walls there and there might be barriers, but the wall could be a metaphor, and you could actually make a door out of that wall. It's all how we choose to look at it.
Uh-oh, Sarah's froze.
Okay, so
there we go.
A great reason never to worry as you embark upon this journey is because the funders are people like you, and they want to help. I'm sorry for that. We're having some weather-related technology issues, so if a pop-up comes saying something about my internet connection, that's why. Anyway, funders are people like you. They care, they want you to succeed, and they want to succeed through your program, and this is why they invest in you and pick you. In particular, they're always looking for entities or programs and projects that fit their mission. Mission fit is the #1 reason that funders will fund your project. Okay, and while we're not going to go into the prospect research today, I just wanted to add this one tip. Always tap local funding sources first. So if you think about it, you want to always apply for things that are closer to home. And the reason is those organizations know you, they share the same communities, they may already understand the work you're trying to do, and they've probably supported your partners, which gives you a leg up going in. And so, so yes, if you have like a local community foundation, that's what I'm talking about. Pursue that. And then out from there, like you'd want to apply for a state program. And if your state's not offering what you need, then you'd go out to the federal level. And of course, it depends on the amount you're seeking as well. But in general, the closer they are to your core, the higher your chance would be to get funded. Okay, start early. I can't stress this enough. Applications nearly always take more time than you anticipate for all kinds of reasons. So you always want to keep time on your side and build a cushion for uncertainty. And answering each question is just the beginning. This is in red because this is a very common misconception. Sometimes people think that just because they've answered all the questions, they're ready to submit the proposal. But there's actually a lot more that has to happen before you're ready to submit the application. So just keep that in mind. You want to respect the process and leave extra time to review your package. Verifying that the scoring criteria has been met, answers are refined, and formatting is optimal, and that final touches have been added. These things might seem really simple, but they can make all the difference in being funded or not, and catching things you might have already otherwise overlooked. So assemble your project team early on. You always, really successful grant projects involve more than one person. While there might be somebody who kind of takes the lead, it's always a partnership. And that's because there's subject matter experts, there's fiscal specialists, and all kinds of other things. So it would be ideal if you could host an application kickoff meeting and invite those various subject matter experts, as well as those who will be involved in carrying out the project. When you involve those who are on the ground people, they'll be able to tell you, oh, hey, we can't start the project in May because we won't be available until June 1st. And so it's little things that actually matter a lot when you put together program plans. And you want to review the funding announcement together, determine the main project facets. Any funder will issue some sort of call for proposals. It goes by a lot of different names: a request for applications, a request for proposals, it might be an email, but usually they're going to outline their criteria to you. So you want to look at that and determine the main project facets and any external partners you'll need to address those required facets. Ensure that your key players understand it, and then verify your eligibility. The funder will always tell you who's eligible for this opportunity. And if you're not eligible, you could stop right there and look for an opportunity that would be a better fit, because eligibility matters a lot. And that's why we talked about your structure of your organization earlier. You'll want to confirm there's ample time to complete a competitive application, and then sketch your timeline. So a little trick is to work backwards from the deadline, like have your calendars out on the conference room in this meeting, and kind of just overall sketch how you're envisioning this. And then you'll want to define each team member's role in completing the application. Clarity goes a long ways in this process. Stay organized. Create an organizational system and stick to it. So even when things get hectic and you get tired, it's really important to adhere to your filing system. And I'm saying this because it will prevent the wrong version of a document being uploaded. I've seen this a lot when I've been on project teams in the past. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Like you've got 20 different documents on your desktop, and it's really easy to grab grab one that was like 2 revisions back. And so an organizational system is really important. It will save you a lot of time, and especially in locating documents. So typically, many drafts of these documents are going to be shared throughout the process as they get developed and then updated by team members. So having this system in place will enable real-time sharing of the latest package, which matters a lot as that deadline encroaches. You'll want to follow the instructions. This is the golden rule with grant applications. This cartoon is a little funny because this person, the donor, is saying, we got thousands of excellent proposals, but not one used our improved format. You might think that's optional when you read the way the request for applications is written, but that is not optional at all. It's there for a reason, and it's not up to us as the applicants to figure that out. Our job is just to follow those instructions and do what they ask. So if you have any questions about their instructions, you need to get clarification per the specified contact person. And different entities handle this different ways, especially federal funders. Some will talk to you on the phone and give you all sorts of insider tips. Others are very formal, and they'll outline, if you have a question, you need to email it to this person, who will then cache them and answer the questions in an email every Friday. This is due to laws and other regulations that they have to follow. So yeah, just be really clear going in what the instructions are, and then be prepared to follow them. Attend webinars and workshops. So again, these are not optional. If your funder says they're hosting one of these, absolutely have a representative there to attend. The funders will know if you're there or not, but more importantly, that's where they're going to share tips with you. If you're willing to invest in them, they'll be willing to invest in you. And by participating and learning more, you're showing that your organization will follow their recommendations. And they'll also tell you who you could connect to on their end. So it's always optimal to run your project idea by the designated program officer or grant liaison after these sessions. These people are gatekeepers. So they'll not only know the types of projects they're looking for on their end, but they'll likely steer you in a better direction before you spend too much time and energy developing your plans that may or may not fit what they're really looking for. Sometimes what it looks like they're looking for on paper isn't really what's happening behind the scenes, and that's why it's important to clarify this. So, all right, so those were some overall tips. Now we're going to start with the budget. The reason we start with the budget is because it's the heart of any proposal, and everything that you will be doing in a grant application is going to justify these expenditures. So if you don't yet know what you would spend the money on, then you're not yet what we call grant ready. Grant readiness means that you have this idea and you can see it happening, and you've actually fleshed out some of the details associated with making that happen. And so it's just a great way. A lot of people start with the budget last, and that's why I'm saying start with that first, because the numbers tell a story, and this will actually save you a lot of time later if it adheres to the your own organization's policies, as well as funder, state, and federal policies, protocols, and laws. And scale your ask. This is something some funders don't ask for, but if you, in your budget narrative, can insert a statement about what you would do with less funding if your project is not funded in full, it reflects humility and proactive planning on your part. You'll want to flesh out the line items, and details matter an awful lot. The more detailed you can be, the better. So you always want to explain how you arrived at your figures, show your math. And That means like, if you're asking for a contractor for a certain amount, in parentheses, you should write like what their hourly rate is and then how many hours you're hiring them for. And if you don't want to do hourly, you could do weekly or monthly, or, you know, you just have to show some sort of formula. And the same is true for supplies you might be procuring and any other line item. And I'd encourage you to use real numbers. A lot of times we round up or we just share these beautiful whole numbers, but uneven figures actually sound more realistic than perfectly rounded ones. And that's going to indicate to the funder that, oh, these people actually are giving us the real numbers. They're not padding their budget. That builds trust. So, and you also want to stay within funder specified limits. If the funder tells you they're funding projects up to $50,000 and you ask for 60, you're already putting an image in the funder's mind about you that's not positive. So respect their guidelines. And all right. Okay, matching funds. By the way, any one of these topics we could spend a whole hour on, so I don't mean to be moving too quickly, but I just wanted to hit on some essentials that are overlooked at times. Matching funds, so a lot of funders, you probably know what matching funds are, but in case you don't, sometimes a funder will ask you, hey, we're willing to give you this much money, but you have to match it and show a fiscal commitment on your end. And matching funds are either in the form of dollars or they're what we call in kind, which could be office space or volunteers that your organization's utilizing. And you might not think you have matching funds of that nature, but you probably do. And this can save you a lot of money when grants do require matching funds. So volunteers alone add up to a significant amount of funds. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics is a really great place to start because it gives task-specific rates. And then there's another source called Independent Sector that has a general rate. And so, for instance, independent sector's average hourly rate last year for a volunteer is $27.20 per hour. But you can imagine if your volunteer is a surgeon on a project you're doing, the surgeon's hourly rate will be a lot more than the $27.20. So that's where you want to go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics site, because you could gather even more funds to show in your budget, which is really important when it saves the organization dollars. Be consistent. Grants are all about transparency. So any terms you use in the budget should match the narrative sections and vice versa. So I'll give an example. Sometimes, especially if you're creating a new program, maybe you're not yet sure what you're going to call that new staff person. And maybe in the budget, you're calling it an administrative director. And then in the rest of your proposal, you're calling it a project director. That might seem like a small difference, but you want to make the job as easy as possible for the grant reviewers to understand your proposal. So when you're consistent, that makes it really obvious to them, oh, they're talking about this program person and now I'm seeing it in the budget. And they don't have to do any guesswork. Your job is to take the guesswork away from those reviewers and make it super clear and make it a joy to read. So the details will reflect your competence. The more that you can share, the clearer the pictures that you paint, and the organization will do things in an ideal way. And so cross-checking your application is something a lot of people don't do, and I really encourage you to do so. It'll be time well spent, and you're going to catch little errors that may have created confusion for the reviewers. Okay, convey in passion. This is actually really important too. Sometimes in applications, because they're intimidating to people, they think they need to use a lot of technical jargon. They think that they need to use big words to impress people, but actually it's more important just to be really be really grounded and just be really clear, to use everyday language and convey to that funder why you do what you do, and then speak from the heart. So this proposal is your chance to tell your unique story, and in doing so, your passion will shine through, and you want to actually focus on how their funding will be a catalyst for you improving your story. You're inviting the funder to become part of enhancing your story through your application. You want to make the funder smile rather than have their eyes glaze over, okay? So stay grounded. What you submit, okay, so I'm saying stay grounded because a lot of times also people will shoot for the stars, but they're not, they're not being mindful of maybe everyday realities within their organization, right? That are beyond their control. So it's really important to be grounded, because what you end up submitting, if you're fortunate enough to be funded, that's what the funder approved. So that's what they think you're going to be doing. And they'll probably issue you a contract, which becomes a legally binding, document. So therefore, all facets of that application should be realistic. And this is why it's important to start early again, so that you have time to involve everybody that's part of that decision-making process of what goes into the application. You want to be authentic. Again, some people think that it's better to portray themselves in this really amazing way, but if that's not based in reality, then it's not quite honest, right? And so honesty is crucial, and it doesn't really matter where you're at in your process. Like it can be spun in your favor. So just be honest. These are just some, don't exaggerate your resume. That's the Pinocchio picture. That's what it says below it. That's a common thing people do, but not a good idea. There's so many places people can look to verify facts. And guess what? If they look there and find out you weren't being truthful, that's not going to play in your favor. And this is funny too, the fortune tellers telling the grant person, I see journal articles, patents, legal fees, and then nothing. So just stay on the truthful side. It's all about cultivating trust. This cartoon says, I'm a fiction writer in the grant proposal genre. And we would say, no, no, no. You'd never want your proposal to be fiction, right? It should always be nonfiction. Telling the truth, even if it's news you'd rather not share, is going to deepen your funder relationship. And the proposal will serve your needs, because if you're already in a great place, that's going to be seen as a strength, and they'll want to invest in you. And if you're not yet there, that's only going to strengthen your case for why you need this funding. And then it's back to the stories again. So one of the most important things a story does is help your organization stand out. Research shows that stories are 22 times more memorable than statistics. Sharing a well-crafted story about someone you serve helps to crystallize the impact of your mission. A story puts a face and voice to your work. So this is said by someone named Lori Jacobwith, and this gets back to the fact that, yes, we do all kinds of things to carry out a program, but at the heart of that are the people that you're serving. And so your story should always start there, about how you're helping people, or maybe you're doing conservation work and it's plants or insects or animals, but start with who it is or what it is that you're serving. The stories give an opportunity to frame things in a positive light. Of course, there's going to be setbacks in life, but the stories are so powerful because how you address and frame them is what matters. You want to always show rather than tell. And that's where, again, if you're a good storyteller, you'll be able to do this. And your organizational strengths, your target population benefits, the competence, compassion, and unique attributes will come out. The funder is your audience, so you want to reach them at a heart level always. And okay, so maybe there's this is an example of how you could spin things in your own favor. Maybe the application says that you, or the funder guidance says that you have to submit an organizational budget, and you're hesitant to do that because you had a deficit last year. And this gives you an example of what you could do to show that, to turn it around and just say, yes, we're admitting that this year in question, it was difficult, but you could ask your CFO to run a financial analysis that will show the income and expense projections, as well as projections for the next several years, to demonstrate that you know how to get back in the black, and that there were definite reasons why the deficit happened in the first place. Your plans for surmounting it, no matter what the obstacle might be, are going to be what the funder really cares about. Because life happens to all of us, and that means organizations too. So be proactive. I in particular like this one because I think there's a misconception out there, and in a lot of grant professionals, no matter if they're a consultant, if they're working for an organization, if they're just striking out on their own, people think that, that somebody, the money will just come, kind of. If we talk about grants enough, the money is going to just arrive one day. But there's actually some really specific steps you need to do in order to make that happen. So just remember that as difficult and challenging as these steps can be to pull all this together, it's your choice to approach proposal development as a chance to build morale, boost confidence, and elevate your organization. And that's going to strengthen your internal relationships. Content that's developed, even if you don't get the grant, it can be used for other ventures. And the organization will be better prepared to deliver its programs and receive supporting funds. So in becoming grant ready, some really basic things you could do is, and this doesn't apply to everybody, and again, it's because of the varied audience, but if any of these match you, just be mindful of these. Update your website. If you describe a website in your proposal as being really dynamic and the funder visits it and they get a page that says under construction, that will be a disconnect from what you told them. Okay, so yeah, you just want to make sure whatever you describe is there if the funder actually visits your website. So you want to make sure it's current and that you're on top of things. Your social media accounts tell part of your story. So just be mindful of what you're posting there. Are you active on social media? If you're pursuing like a foundation funder, and even some federal and state funders, you'll want to look and see if they have a social media account and have your organization follow their account, because it shows a level of investment on your part that you don't just want to have the relationship for their money, but that you actually care about the work they're doing in the communities as well. Update your organizational chart, your board of directors roster, key staff resumes, your organizational budget for the current fiscal year, and any strategic plans, not only for your organization, but key partners in the region, state, and even nationally, because these documents demonstrate how your program fits into broader plans and priorities. And the reason this is called becoming grant ready is these are things you can do on the back end before you ever know of any particular funding opportunity. You could be working on these things, because these things alone can take up a lot of time and energy. And it's great if you can kind of monitor your organization in this way and have these things ready at any given time. And then you can focus your energy itself. And then there's other funder specified documents that might include bylaws, resolutions, partner agreements such as memoranda of understanding or contracts, financial statements from prior years. This one is challenging for a lot of smaller organizations in particular. So, it might cost $6,000 to get an audit, for instance, but if you could at least have a CPA sign off on your financial statement, that will show a greater level of professionalism than an unsigned statement would, which makes a difference when you're trying to convey your organizational capacity to a funder and they're trying to pick between you and an organization that might be more ready to receive their funding. And then a federally negotiated indirect cost rate agreement is a common attachment that certain types of funders ask for. Not all organizations have these, but if you do have one, it could result in a lot of indirect costs that you could claim in your budget. And there's a ton of other attachments that we don't have time to go into today. You'll want to cache your program materials in one place. And so some of these materials might be the history of your organization, and then your particular program or the problem you're trying to address. The aim, meaning the vision and mission statements of your organization. Any quantitative data that's relevant to your proposal. So for instance, the number of people, animals, or other species you've served, and ensuring it's current and credible. And so this is again where it's really important to be mindful of who your funder is. For example, federal funders really respect federal data. And if you're quoting a local newspaper as a data source to a federal funder, that's not going to fly. You'll get put in the pile, don't take these people seriously. They're probably not credible. Qualitative data, that's more of things like photos and videos and testimonials. These things are really important. Testimonials alone from like prior program participants, like if you've changed someone's life because of the services you were able to deliver, that's going to be really important to share in your application. And that alone could help set you aside from your competition. Proof of nonprofit status, that's your federal tax letter of determination or whatever else you might have to prove that you're a nonprofit. And I have this again, the indirect cost rate. You want to always set yourself up for success. So this is something that's been invaluable for me in all sorts of scenarios, is to create an application template that includes each section and attachment. And you want to do this even when preparing an online application. This is something a lot of people don't realize, and it gets back to what we discussed earlier. You know, if there is an online application that has 10 questions, people think, oh, great, this is such a breeze, and they'll go through and answer everything and hit submit. But honestly, it's much better to extract those questions, put them in a Word document or some other template, and then you want to touch on each of these check marks. So you want to embed the instructions, and to maximize the scoring, you want to extract content from the application review matrix into the appropriate questions. And that's going to tell you how each question is going to be weighted by the funder. The funders are looking for specific things. You want to then follow their framework, because if you make it easy for them to find these facets they've specified, you're making their job easier, which makes it more enjoyable for them to review your application, which means you're likelier to get a higher score. Label sections exactly as the funder has. So an example, if they're calling it deliverables, call it deliverables. Parrot any key funder buzzwords that they have, because they're telling you those are important to them. And because they're important to them, they should be important to you. As you delve into your project plans, you want to be, again, as specific as possible. You want to articulate the amount of your funding request, your timeline, your project location, target audience. These two sometimes people are vague on, and it's important not to be vague on that. Are you serving girls aged 9 through 13 who are Hispanic, or are you serving adults that are, aged 45 and older from 5 different communities? Just be specific. Who are your key program staff? Who are your vital partners? And you want to have an innovative project title. Remember that you're trying to make your project stand out. This is the title of your project is something that might be used in press releases, but more importantly, when they have a pile of projects, even if it's an online application, and they're all kind of like these really ordinary titles, and you're one of like 3 that have this really catchy title. You're telling something about your organization as being innovative. You're kind of going a step beyond what the others have, and that's a good thing to do when you're trying to stand apart from the competition. Okay, your project plans need to be as detailed as everything else, and the best tip I could give you is to work backwards from the impact. So anybody, I'm sure, on your staff could tell you, oh, we're doing this work because we really want to help our community members. You know, these are our family members, these are our friends, and they're just people that we serve out in our community that we greatly care about. And so that's what you're trying to do. That's the impact. You're trying to improve maybe their quality of life. A long and short-term outcome are things that change at the community level. Like maybe you will have a community clinic that was never there as a result of this project. So that's a community change that you can see in the environment. Those are more like the long and short-term outcomes. Outputs will be immediate project results. So maybe your project, maybe you don't yet have money to build the clinic, but you're working toward that. So an output would be something like offering a new program where every Friday a team of clinicians are coming to the local trading post, and usually those community members would have to travel an hour and a half to be seen in a different clinic. But now through this program of your grant proposal, you're going to bring those services to the trading post every Friday. That's an immediate project result. A goal is what you're aiming for. You're aiming for providing preventive healthcare services. And objectives are how you'll reach these goals, specifying the dates and other numbers. So like every Friday, a team of 3 medical providers are coming to the Tozo trading post, and they're going to serve 10 people from Lukachukai. That's an example. Activities are things you'll do to carry out these objectives, and inputs are the ingredients such as people and resources. And this again ties back to your budget. So like, in order to do this, we need a passenger van to go to the home of elders and bring them into the trading post on these Fridays, because they don't have a way to get there otherwise. So you need money for the van, you need money for the gas, resources. We need a driver, we need these 3 clinicians, we need syringes and blood pressure cuffs and all kinds of other things. These are resources. So a template I like to use is a logic model, and some of us absolutely love logic models, and then others you know, have never heard of logic models, and others run away from them. But a logic model can be your friend, and I just encourage you to think about it in these really simplistic ways, and just you could do columns for these different facets, and it's going to help you tremendously in getting clear on what it is you're doing and what the boundaries of that are. And these are elements of any application, by the way. So you've got to figure those things out one way or another. Okay, supporting plans. These are things that are not always asked for by a funder, but if you have space left over or you have optional attachments, these are excellent things to include, because again, it will demonstrate that you're going a step beyond what This explains how your budget expenses tie into the program plans. While it might be obvious to you, it's probably not obvious to everybody on that review panel. So each line item should be addressed. And I guess I better start moving through these quickly. I'm noticing we've just got 15 minutes left. So I'm just going to touch on these. An evaluation plan talks about how you will know when you've been successful. A sustainability plan demonstrates how you're going, if they do invest in you, how are you going to sustain this program or project beyond this grant funding? This is actually really important these days. And saying we'll get more grants as the answer to that question, it's no longer acceptable. It's not going to get you anywhere. You really need to demonstrate a deeper level of involvement with community partners and things of that nature. Marketing plan. How will you reach out to potential program participants to tell them about your shiny new program if you get this money? How will you let others know that the program is made possible thanks to this funder? You remember, it's a relationship, so you don't want to just take their money and then they never hear from you again. You want to show them that you're actually helping them succeed by them helping you succeed. Okay, so keep asking till you find the answer. A lot of times, so I'm a grant consultant currently, and a lot of times when I check in with my client, I'll find out the reason I am fuzzy about something is because they're fuzzy. They haven't yet figured that out. So this happens to all of us, by the way. When you dream something up, it's still taking shape, right? So as you develop your proposal, if you get stuck, just write each question on a whiteboard or something like that, a piece of paper, and keep drawing out bubbles for each thought that comes, and continue asking how or why till the answer becomes really clear. And you just want to be sure that you're distilling the information down to the level the funder is asking for in the questions in the grant proposal. These elements can seem daunting, but they're actually just painting a picture for the funder of the very basic elements. Who's doing it and who is it for? What are you doing? Where are you doing it? When will you do it? And why will you do it? And then how will you do it? And then how much? Like, you might explain how, but you've got to go a step beyond and say how much. So take advantage of these optional attachments. As I said, you want to be sure all your documents are branded consistently with your organizational project name or logo. Date all your documents. Again, if you're submitting something that was last updated 10 years ago, the picture you're painting for the funder is that your organization is stagnant instead of dynamic. Provide references. Be sure to professionally cite data sources and literature. And the funder often tells you the style they want you to use in that regard. And you want to use appealing formats like tables, charts, maps, and other visuals. There's been research done on this too. It's actually more memorable to convey information this way. And more importantly, it's more interesting for the funders to read, and it saves you really valuable space in situations where you're limited on pages. Seek out expertise. There's a lot of free resources out there. Definitely bounce ideas off colleagues. If you've got your drafts of different documents or the whole proposal prepared ahead of time, share it with people. The more eyes on it, the better. If they tear it up, you should consider yourself lucky. It's a great thing when someone's willing to look over your work and offer you suggestions. The internet, even if you can't afford, like if you were looking for a funder to match what you need, you'd be surprised what you'd find just by plugging some keywords into a basic search tool like Google. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on these tools. So local, state, and national agencies always have liaisons that are invaluable sources of information. And then libraries, like the staff are really valuable there too, and knowledgeable. There's a lot of software programs that the community invests in through the library that's free to the community. And that's true of data. Like when you're doing prospect research to find these funders, most libraries, Flagstaff has it, and I know most major towns subscribe to a version of this that's and how to help you tap that. But the data, that's true of data though too, like especially as you're seeking out federal data, like each department and programs within departments, there's just a wealth of information out there that can be accessed for free. Always cater to the reviewers. They're human. As we've said, they're touched by stories. And so you want to make them want to read more. Look at this cartoon. You know, it's the difference between you're boring the reviewer or you're engaging them. They're so excited excited. They want to learn more. And again, it's your real life stories that are going to do this for you. Encourage you to take a chance, be creative. You know, if they've got a stack of 30 proposals and, you know, you're one of two that's really fun to read and you're doing something like in a whole different way than others, they might really like that. You want to articulate what they're going to get out of it and highlight your unique attributes. These reviewers determine your fate, and you're writing for them, and you just never forget that. You want to make it as easy for them as possible. You've got to remember, they might be doing this on a volunteer basis. They've got lives outside of reviewing your proposal too. They might be tired at the end of their day, and the lighting might be dim, and they have a stack of 100 to go through. And so if you haven't followed their instructions, and they have to hunt around to find the essential content that they have to score, or if you're using a lot of acronyms they don't understand, and you know that's not going to play in your favor. So you want to clearly label everything. If they've given you 5 essential attachments, for instance, and they said one is called resume and the other one is called sustainability plan, you know, you want to label those attachments exactly as they have. This is a common mistake people make, is they label it as they have been sharing it internally. And it might be a title that's a mile long and it's got everybody's name and different revision dates. Do not do that, please. It makes you look unprofessional. And again, you want to be very polished in your final product. So don't use any fluffy language, just stick to the facts. That's going to be much more convincing for them. And so like this cartoon, it shows it's the mystery suspense proposal because nobody knows what it's about. These are the reviewers, and they don't yet know what the proposal is about. This happens. So don't be that proposal. Don't create that proposal. Okay, so you're always writing for the yes pile. Following the instructions and following some of these other tips I've given you will help you do that. There are piles in some of these processes, and you want to be the obvious choice. Ask yourself, what am I bringing that nobody else does? And how are we changing lives for the better? And highlight that everywhere you can in your proposal. And remember that not everybody on the review panel knows the ins and outs of your program or project. They might be hearing about it for the first time, and they also might not be a subject matter expert. So you need to write it as though if you shared it with your family member or best friend, it would make sense to them. It should make sense to someone completely unfamiliar with the project. And if it hasn't, you might want to revisit it. So what's important to the funders should be very important to you. The one with on the left here, the cartoon, fast food joints, like they are all coming from a different angle, right? So they all reviewed the burger in a whole different way. It was the same burger, you guys, got a different score because of their lens. And it's the same with these animals on the right. It was the same proposal that got a totally different score. One scored it a 2 out of 10, one gave it 8 out of 10, and one 9 out of 10. So it's just important to note there's a lot of factors beyond the quality of the proposal, but all you can do is submit the best possible product to them. And the rest is out of your hands, but it's important to be mindful of who your funders are. Again, you want to make a good impression. Never agitate the funder. Don't add content the funder hasn't asked for. Excess will not impress in this case. You're simply putting together a puzzle. This I'll touch on really fast. It's hard. It's hard, man. We've all been there in the trenches. Just help yourself by clearing your calendar. You know, things happen unforeseen. There's a storm and the electricity goes out in the day. Things happen. So just know you'll get back to your normal life after this is in. So try to clear your calendar, get a lot of sleep, try to you know, nurture your body as best you can. It will help a lot. And then just believe it's possible. If you don't feel you're worthy of the funding, then why should they want to invest in you? You've just got to believe it's possible. and set your intention, you're about, you know, that you're going to get this award, and focus on the positive impact it's going to make, and just let go of the rest, and just, you'll feel really good knowing you've done your part. So guess we will open it up now to any questions, and definitely please speak up if you have your own tips you'd like to share with the group, things that may have worked really well for you that I did not cover.
Great. Well, we've got one question here, Sarah, that says, can these strategies be applied to or apply for funding for binational initiatives?
Binational initiatives. I wonder if that the asker could unmute themselves and
Clarify.
kind of set more context for that.
Yeah. In the meantime, I took away a couple of key points as somebody who administers grants here at the ACA. I really appreciate your presentation and the points that you made. Some of them that resonated with me are answer all questions, even if it's NA. Mark NA in the line item so that I know you didn't just skip it. Follow the instructions. The instructions are written the way they are for a certain reason. And so if your project doesn't fit, don't try to make the instructions out to be what they're not. But yeah, follow the instructions is a key one that not many people really take to heart, because we get a lot of questions that are clearly delineated in the instructions. And then, the other one is on funders know who attends the webinars and workshops. It's very hard to be sympathetic to somebody who didn't get a grant when they have not been engaged or sort of had their head in the sand when you've provided them opportunities to learn about your grant initiative and some of the objectives that it seeks to fund. So absolutely take advantage of those. Work backward from the impact. I love that, because what that says to a grant administrator is the impact is what I want to see as somebody who wants to help you help me. And so I want to see what the outcome is going to be in terms of impact, and then we can back up into how you're going to get there. But that's a powerful statement when you talk about the impact right up front, instead of making the funder dig for it. And that speaks to the last one I have written down here: make it easy for the reviewer. The reviewer shouldn't have to read the proposal 3 or 4 times to figure out what it actually says. I always laugh at the websites that describe companies, and they're described in these esoteric terms, but you come away not knowing what they really make or do, other than they're number one in their category. So anyhow, those are a couple of my takeaways. But there's a couple here in the chat. Let's see.
Keith, before
Go ahead,
you
Sarah.
go on to the new, yeah, so regarding that original question, I would say yes. The answer is yes. These would apply to any type of proposal. The only binational I have done is like with a number of tribes across state lines, like 2 states. So I haven't actually done one outside of the United States, other than with tribal nations. So I think it would come down to what the funder tells you about in those requests for applications. That's what's going to tell you how to approach that. Sorry,
Yeah,
I can't
and I
offer
think
more.
these are good fundamentals that can be applied to anybody who is applying for a grant, regardless of where it comes from. And I think it's part and parcel to putting together a good product and knowing your audience. I don't see any other questions here. Sarah's deck will be posted on the ACA website under the Rural Economic Development webinars. In fact, I think it's up there right now. There will also be a recording of this today on that same website. And so if you want to go back and listen to any particular part or the whole thing in its entirety, please do so. But Sara Wagner, thank you very much. This was very insightful, very eye-opening, and I learned a lot, and I hope our participants did too. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I wish I could have met everybody who participated as well, and don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Have a good day, everybody.